Okay. I'm sorry that, of course, Jeanne-Claude is not here because she will make much better introduction than I do. And it's, I always try to remember what she would say. And she was always saying that we were born June 13, 1935, the same hour, the same day, but two different mothers. And she also was saying that in 1964, we immigrated to the United States. No, we immigrated to New York City. And of course, now I will show you, I know old-fashioned, but I still believe the color slides is better than new technology. I will show you the 80 color slides about these two projects in progress for many years. And after that, I will come here, and we show in the dark. I don't read anything. I come here, and I will answer many questions. But this is again Jeanne-Claude. We will not talk about politics. We do not talk about religion. It's certainly, I will not talk about other artists. I'm still alive, and I prefer to talk about myself and our work, and answer any question. Now I go downstairs, and we start color slides. In 1991, we were finishing the project, the umbrellas, joint project for Japan and United States. There was the 1,340 blue umbrellas in Japan and 1,760 yellow umbrellas in Southern California, actually in Los Angeles and Kern County. Each umbrella was 20 feet tall, 29 feet diameter. The length of the project in Japan was 12 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. We have actually in Japan a river, Sato River, and the Sato River, 90 umbrellas were standing there. And the length of the project in California was 19 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. And Los Angeles in Kern County, especially around the Interstate 5. Now, when this umbrella was standing up in Japan and California, many years before we have idea about umbrellas, in 1971, we proposed to wrap the former parliament of Germany, the Reichstag, and today, of course, the Parliament of Germany. The permits for that project was long, tortuous way. The first refusal for the wrapping of the Reichstag was, we have it in 1977, the second in 1981, the third in 1987, and when the umbrellas were standing in Japan and California, we received a letter from the Speaker of the House of the German Parliament, Professor Dr. Rita Sussmuth, congratulating us for the umbrellas and saying, that is the time to start again negotiating the permission for the Reichstag. But we already have idea for new project. And I will show here the very early sketches about Over the River. This is the very simple proposal to suspend horizontally fabric panel above the water. The real drawing is only 8.5 by 11 inches. I blew a little person here. You can experience the project from above. And when you go down to the river, you can experience the project from under. These two little drawings, now they're in the collection of the National Gallery in Washington, who are actually the biggest museum collector of our works. They have 60 original works in their collection. The chance to get finally permission of the Reichstag was so great. Between 1992 and 1994, we spent 180 days in the capital of Germany, that time the city of Bonn, negotiating, lobbying the 660 deputies of the German parliament to get the permission for the Reichstag. Only during the summertime, when the day was on holidays, we have time for Over the River. Jeanne-Claude have enough of city, and I remember vividly tell, we will do Over the River in the United States. And this is why we know very well that most of the great rivers in the United States, they're born in the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains divide the water, east going to Mississippi and Gulf of Mexico, west going to the Pacific Ocean. In the summer of 92, 93, and 94, we drive with our friends 15,000 miles investigating 89 rivers in the Rocky Mountains in the state of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. From these 89 rivers, we come to 6 possible sites for our project. there was two rivers in the state of Idaho. Piat River, northeast of Boise, Idaho, and Salmon River near Montana border. One section of Wind River in the state of Wyoming. Two rivers on the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Cache la Poudre, north of Denver, and Arkansas, south of Denver, a section of Rio Grande, of New Mexico. Our friend photographer Wolfgang Wolf's traveling with us. He takes pictures. I will show here a little sketch from 1993 or 4, already with the real situation. I'm standing here to give you a scale of the project. And we have the six sites, but in February of 1994, we get permission for the wrapping of the Reichstag, and we put all our resources, energy, money, and wisdom, and finally in 1995, the Reichstag was wrapped. With 1 million square feet of silver color fabric, using 10 miles of rope, and for 2 weeks, over 5 million people came to see the Reichstag, and this late June, early July for 1995. After 2 weeks exhibition of the project, we removed all the material, fabric, rope, steel. All the materials were industrially recycled and returned back to New York. Now, many years before Reichstag was realized, in 1979, we proposed the project for the gates in Central Park. We worked for 2 years with the Koch administration, and in 1981, the Koch administration refused the project. When we returned back from the Reichstag in 1995, we started negotiating the project with the Giuliani administration, but they was not at all interested in Central Park project, especially the park commissioner of Giuliani administration. And we have not yet site for our over the river. In the summer of 96, our team returned to the site of these 6 rivers. Try to see, is that right? And you see our chief engineer, Wes Davenport, here. We need to take a lot of information. The soil of the banks of the river, the height of the banks of the river, many other information before we come to consensus what river is most exactly good for our project. For example, here we have these yellow ropes who actually will simulate our steel cables. We need to have at least clearance of 8 feet from the water to the cables that the rafters can go underneath. For example, here you have 3 yellow ropes, creating this, 3 steel cables, simulate 3 yellow ropes, creating the space for 2 fabric panels. And we did that through all these 6 rivers. By late 96, early 97, we come to the consensus for the aesthetical, engineering-wise, and many other reasons. I can explain you later that this section of Arkansas River of 42 miles, southwest from Denver and southwest from Colorado Springs, and these 42 miles, we'd like to install around 6 miles of fabric panels and many locations. Now, Arkansas River is in the southern part of Colorado. This is how he looked during the summertime. The project is slatted for the summer because we need to have the rafters. Arkansas River is the most rafted river in the United States. They have 300,000 rafters in the summer without us. On the south bank of the river, you have the Highway 50, and the north bank of the river, you have Union Pacific Railroad tracks. And already in 96, I started to do the original drawings and collages with the real situation. I will show one here. The original work is only 30.5 by 26 inches and 30.5 by 12 inches, the second part on the right side. The real, I use finer cloth to simulate the fabric of our fabric panels. Typical interruption when you have the vegetation or rock formation. And I use here the twine to simulate our diagonal cables of fabric panels. Now, this is the view from above. You cannot see the river, but when you go down, and this is the way how can we also experience the project, you have a completely different vision. We're using very special, loosely woven fabric, through the fabric, you can see the cloud formation and contour of the mountains. Now, the fabric is only, the width of the fabric is only with the width of the river, meaning that sometimes the fabric is width 45 feet, sometimes the fabric is width 120 feet. From cable to cable is 35 feet, and of course the banks of the river, they're not always the same height. On many occasions, one bank of the river is higher than the other bank of the river. Now, like everything for the last even 50 years, the most difficult part of all our project is to get permission. It's always the same things. Even today, when I'm 75, still we have a hell of a time to get permission. We learned that we know that everything in the world belongs to somebody. They are not 1 square meters, there is not a jurisdiction of somebody. And we learned very soon that entire 42 miles, almost entire 98% of the older area we like to use for our project belong to United States federal government, Department of Interior, and of course the very powerful, under the Ministry of Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management. It's an incredibly lucrative ministry with tremendous power to all the system in the United States. But of course, in these 42 miles of valley, there are also 7 towns and villages and factories and schools and churches and all kinds of activity. And before we go to Washington, this is all during the Clinton administration, we are presenting the project here to the town of the west entrance of the project, little town of Salida. Now, little town of Salida, they don't know very little about us. I put on the wall some photographs, and we try to explain our project. Now, the town is a very small town, mostly populated with senior citizen hippies who arrived here in the late 60s, early 70s, and we explaining what we did. For example, we tell to the people that, to the community there, that in 1969, we did a project in Australia called Wrapped Coast. Wrapped coastline, 1.5 miles coastline outside of Sydney, Australia, with the 35 miles of ropes and 1.5 million square feet of this polypropylene fabric. We have 80 feet cliffs to the sandy beaches in 1969. In 1972, we did a project in the western slope on Colorado, Valley Curtain. This is a span of Brooklyn Bridge. It's 180 feet in the center, 360 feet on the main foundation in August of 1972. Between 72 and 76, we worked hard, and finally, in 1976, was realized the running fence, the project in Northern California, north of San Francisco, and Sonoma and Marin County, running for 24 miles fence, 18 feet tall, and 1/4 mile disappearing in Pacific Ocean. Now, all these projects, they're temporary works of art. After 2 weeks of exhibition, all the materials removed, industrially recycled, and we go to the next project. In 1978, we did project in Lewis Park in Kansas City, Missouri, where we cover 2.5 miles walkway with this golden fabric, and late October, September, early October, and the foliage of the trees start to match the color of the fabric. And of course, in 1980, we started a project in southern Florida, Biscayne Bay and Miami, and finally in 1983, surrounded island was realized. This is a Jeanne-Claude idea. We surrounded 11 islands with 16.5 million square feet of floating pink fabric, 7 miles from smack of Dade County, and the fabric is attached to the beach area of the islands, floating 220 feet on the surface of the water, ending with an octagonal shaped boom and anchor to the shallow bay and Biscayne Bay. And of course, something Jeanne-Claude always loved to say, that we don't wrap islands, we surrounded islands. England is not wrapped in water, it's surrounded with water. This is what we did. And finally, between 1975 and 85, we worked hard, and after 2 refusals, finally, in 1985, we wrapped the oldest bridge in Paris, the Pont Neuf, in the smack of Paris, the bridge Pont Neuf, with this champagne color fabric. Late September, early October, and 3 million people walk around the bridge. From Salida, we go to the Canyon City, another city town from close to the eastern entrance of the project. Here we're in the stage. All our team is on the left side, and all the officials from federal, state, and county highway department is on the right side. Now, from there, this is all in late 90s, we're arriving in Washington and presenting the project to the BLM director, Mr. Fry, when the Secretary of Interior was Bruce Babbitt, in big support of our project. The thing was smoothly working. It was very important to put together many, many permits. You know, the federal government owned the land, but federal government leased the land. lease the land to ranches, to private companies, especially to state, different agency, and we work very hard that we can put together these all different agencies that our discussion for the permission will be happen that they are, it's called a memorandum of understanding that they can all be informed. Now, on the left side is our team, and the right side is the BLM, the highway department, the county, and the right side. Now, the project, this has happened to the late 90s. We need to move ahead with many technical final designing for the permission. We hired the services of the engineering company outside of Toronto, Guelph, Canada, to conduct our wind tunnel test. Now, this is the 3 fabric panels, 1/16 scale, and we need to know all the force of the wind and the cable and the hooks and the anchors to finalize how the project will be built, because that is part of the documents we need to get the permission for in the application to the federal government. Now, all our project, the unique image, meaning that we will never build another running fence, we will never install another gates, we will never surround another islands, we will never up another parliament, meaning that myself, Jeanne-Claude, and our engineers do not know how this project will be built, and we don't know how to really choose the materials. We cannot choose the materials and the cables and a variety of things in the studio of Manhattan. We need to do always life sites test for all our projects, and private place, secretly, somewhere, we're doing life sites tests. For the over the river, we rented ranch 300 miles west from Arkansas River, when we have a topography similar to Arkansas River, and we conducted our life sites tests in the late 90s. You see, this is our compound is there. We stayed there several weeks looking, and this is the real fabric panel there, and one-to-one scale, and we can see that how the fabric moves with the wind. For example, the fabric have a silver color, but actually it's not silver color, it's pulverized with aluminum. Sometimes we use aluminum and copper, sometimes more fabric, less fabric in the panels, more hooks, less hooks, and which will finalize all the exact how the project should be built. You see, underneath, you can see the cloud formation and the contour of the mountain. Usually, I don't like to show this color slide, but give you some idea of the scale. Here's Jeanne-Claude standing. This work was done in the 97, 98, and 99. I was telling you that we use 42 miles of Arkansas River to install 5.9 miles of fabric panels. And in 2000, we worked with our engineers and map makers to finalize exactly where these fabric panels will be there. You see typical close-up. All these fabric panels will be rectangular. Of course, they change with the width of the water. The red line is the steel cables go much further away. And you see that when the river turns, we need to fabricate intricate trapezoid fabric panels. Sometimes the river turn make 90 degrees. We need to have these incredible fabric panels, all costume made. And they are for exact position on this area of 42 miles of river. All that costs a lot of money. Myself and Jeanne-Claude, we are not independently wealthy. You should understand, all these projects, they entirely pay with our own money. There are no grants, there are no industry, there are no donation, no anything like that. This is all our money. The money comes from the sale of original works of art I do with my own hand. All the works of art is done by myself. Ask what artist 75 years old can tell you that. Every work. And my studio in Manhattan that we live for 46 years, the top floor, no elevator. I will show a section of my studio. For over 40 years, I have no time to clean it up. You see in that little table, I do the drawings, very small drawings, very much like architects. I use photography, I glue things, and they're called collages. And when that work is finished, they're called preparatory study. They're done all before. I never draw once the project is realized. They're done all before. It's like that. This is the preparatory study for the Pont Neuf project. It's in 2 parts. The left side, I use chalk, pastel, wax crayon, finer cloth, and twine to simulate the rope of Pont Neuf. The right side is aerial photography of Paris with the section of the area of where Pont Neuf is situated, and reproduction of Demarchand, this is the architect of the Pont Neuf of 16th century. Now, that original work is in a private collection in Belgium. Another study, the same dimension for the Gates project. Actually, that study is just 2 years before the project is realized. And the upper part, you have a already real sample of the real cloth we use for the fabric panels of the gates. And again, with pencil, chalk, and pastel, but I use finer cloth to simulate the fabric and that study. That is in the collection in Germany, that collage. I work very much over photography of our friend Wolfgang Voss. This is a little sketch, 8.5 by 11 inches, of Wolf in photography with wax crayon, enamel pen. And you see the grit. That grit allows me to transport and do the larger drawings. Now, I put the drawing paper on wooden board, another not glamorous place in my studio. I'm preparing drawings for the Reichstag. My hair is still darker. I have a little sketch here of the Reichstag, and when that drawing is finishing, it looks like that. This is the 42 by 65 inches, the lower part, and 15 by 65 inches, the upper part, pastel, charcoal, wax crayon. The upper part have a cross-section of the Reichstag building, restored in 1960, and the photography of Wolfi of the Brandenburg Gate and the Reichstag from the 79. That drawing's in the collection in Germany. This is another drawing, the same size, about over the river. It's typical when when the banks of the river, they're not the same height, and the fabric panels, they incline. The larger drawings, they're 96 inches drawing. This is the study for the blue umbrellas. On the left side, you have the valley of Ibaraki with 1,340 blue dots, and that small village of Jimba, when you have about 35 houses, we install over 100 umbrellas. Each umbrella is taller height of the two-story houses. Now, from the top floor, no elevator, I bring these original works of art on our second floor, and there where we sell our original works of art. And some of you are artists and know how that transaction is happened. The buyers of art, they're collectors, museum or corporation. They come to the studio, they choose the work, they give us money, and they take the work. This is how we have money. They don't have a mystery. It is our money, it's our right how we spend the money. Sometimes the museum try to buy or to have early works. I will show a work from 1961, which is in the collection of National Gallery in Washington. It's a package, it's a wall piece, and that is in 1961. We have many of these early works because we have no gallery and we kept them. And of course, this is a much more expensive, most important works for many museum collectors. Between 1964 and 63 and 67, I recuperated from demolition of storefronts, show window, door of storefronts, and rebuilt these storefronts inside, in the room. And this is the sculpture from 1964 called Storefront. It's life-size. It's exactly like the dimension of real storefronts. It's the glass you cannot see behind there because it's a curtain obstruction. And we have a door, you cannot open the door. That storefront now is in the collection of the Herschel Museum in Washington, D.C. Now, many years before, we have idea about the over the river. In 1966, we tried to wrap the trees during the winter time and Forest Park in St. Louis, Missouri. We never get permission. In 1968, 69, we tried to wrap the trees during the winter time of an avenue of Champs-Élysées in Paris. We never get permission. And finally, in 1997, we started negotiating the permission to wrap 178 trees. And the Berover Park and Fondation Baylor outside of Basel, Switzerland, and we get the permission, and we wrap the tree in autumn of 1998. We have this sunny day, we have a snow, this is color picture, and we have a gorgeous sunset. Now, many years before that project is realized, in the late 50s and early 60s, I did a lot of sculpture involving these colorful rusted oil barrels. Sometimes they're all different colors, and there was like sculpture. Some of the barrels, they are wrapped, some not wrapped. In 1962, we did the project, the second project, myself and Jeanne-Claude together, in city of Paris, the Iron Curtain. The wall of 240 barrels was a poetical response to the Berlin Wall, which was built just a year before that, in 1961, in the left bank in Paris and Rue Visconti. And through the years, in the late 60s and mid-60s, I did a number of temporary installations with oil barrels in museums and sculptures in museums. And finally, in 1979, we arrived in the Sheikhdom of Abu Dhabi. At that time, many people will not know where is Abu Dhabi, to present the project for the Mastaba. Now, when he stuck horizontally oil barrels, he created angle, always 60 degrees. That is little diagram you see there. And our proposal is to stack 410,000 oil barrels, created structure who will be, and I will show you the photo montage, it's not realized yet, will be 500 feet tall, the vertical wall, 1,000 feet underground, and 750 feet on the slanted wall. When approaching the vertical wall, you have these 500 feet tall walls like Islamic mosaic with these multicolored barrels. In 1979, Jean-Claude and myself, we arrived in Abu Dhabi, much younger, you see here, talking to the Minister of the Culture and the Tourism of Abu Dhabi. I'm a representative of Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan. He's the founder of United Arab Emirates. Sheikh Zayed is like George Washington of United Arab Emirates. Here, taking again with a representative of Sheikh Zayed. And no, really, basically, we need to translate our desire for that project, articulate the project. Here, the Zayed family coming from the inland, not at all in Abu Dhabi, from the empty quarter in the desert. And here we're talking to the Dean University of Airline, the birthplace of the Zayed family. The project is built between Abu Dhabi, slated to be between Abu Dhabi Airline, and discussing that project. And we stopped to go to Abu Dhabi when Iraq-Iran war started in the mid-80s. And of course, that time, we need to finish the Pont Neuf project, the umbrellas, the Reichstag, and only we returned to Abu Dhabi after the gates was realized. Now, we need to work ahead with the engineering of that project because it was loosely engineered in 1989, 90. And Jean-Claude and myself, we hired the services, one of the toppest engineering schools in the world, the services of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology of Zurich, the services of United Kingdom, the Cambridge University, the services of Hosei University in Tokyo, the services of Champaign University of Illinois, Urbana, and we asked the professor and the assistant to come with with variety of solutions how to build a project. For example, here is Professor Schalcher of the Swiss Institute and Professor Pusrin discussing another idea how to build that project of 410,000 barrels. Here with Professor Sasaki and Professor Ando of Hosei University in Tokyo discussing that proposal. And the last time, Jean-Claude and myself, we were in Abu Dhabi in 2007. Now, in 1998, a location actually when we like very much the project to be realized. In 1998, in a museum in Germany, we built a wall of 13,000 oil barrels. This is 250 feet long wall, 80 feet tall and 21 feet in depth in the museum in Oberhausen in Germany. And actually, this is a huge atrium with elevator, you can see the wall from above. But in 2001, a friend of ours for many years was elected the mayor of New York City. And when Mr. Bloomberg, Michael R. Bloomberg, was elected mayor of New York City, we were hoping that chances of the gates finally become real. We worked very hard, and in 2003, we get permission of the city of New York, and finally, in 2005, the gates was realized. And everybody knows we installed 7,503 gates and 23 miles walkway. We have 25 different width of gates, but all the gates were 16 feet tall. And we have sunny days, we have a winter, and we have this view from above part of the gates. After 16 days of exhibition of the gates project, all the materials was removed, industrially recycled, and 2005, we returned back to Colorado. We need to hire the services of the Colorado engineers, our chief engineer, Liz Davenport, our project director, Junita Davenport, they on the left here, and we need to have services of Colorado engineers to work on our engineering material. Here, we are talking to the very important people that we cannot do the project without them. Our engineers and our construction people like to very much use the railroad tracks of Union Pacific, and that is the only permits actually we have now. In Omaha, Nebraska, we discussed with the executive officer of the Union Pacific Railroad Company, and that allows us to alleviate the big traffic on the road and move much of the hardware in materials using our own engine, using the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. Here we're talking to the director of BLM. The federal government have a director in each state, and director of BLM in the state of Colorado. Here talking to the BLM federal representative of the area of the project is realized, and it's called the Royal Gorge area of the Bureau of Land Management. Here, we're, for example, talking countless lecture like tonight. You know, we're lecturing, and after that, myself, Jean-Claude, Junita Davenport, Viz Davenport come on the stage and answer questions. The federal government also was very eager to see and what kind of machinery we use. But before that, our engineers need to work on very intricate things we need to have. You know, our cables need to be absolutely parallel. And for that reason, we have this little structure called anchor transition frame. For each cable, each end of the cable, we need to have 4 anchors. That anchor transition frame, which is between 12 inches high and 24 inches high, allow us to move that horizontal bar, put it there, to move the cables absolutely parallel, because this is the only way our carabiners can slide on the cables. In the summer of 2006, we demonstrated to the federal government what kind of drilling machinery we use. We need to drill 9,000 anchor, 21 feet depth in the soil, and they are these steel anchors who are usually very often familiar use in the retaining walls when you're building the highway, when you have a rock formation, you need to retain the walls. Finally, in 2006, we hired a company to prepare the final application to the federal government. You know, to get permission for the federal government is not writing a letter. You need to have people to preparing that. They work 1.5 years, all that great company, all kind of engineer, traffic specialists, wildlife specialists. And $1.5 million cost, they produce our application is 2,029 pages. This is to the federal government. The federal government now received this about 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. They hire another company that we cannot talk to them. They review that book. They produce 1,460 pages and cost another $2 million. And that finding was just released on July 15 by the federal government, can see in the website. And there was the comments for 60 days, and there was 4,000 latent comments to the federal government. Right now, these comments, they are reviewed to be classified to arrive to the final things. Now, I will show you 3 more images of the original works. You see how the project will look underneath. And I will finish that quite boring presentation and answer questions, because this is the important part. Thank you very much.